It lays the predicate and the foundation for the development of a weather satellite that will permit man to determine the world's cloud layer and ultimately to control the weather, and he who controls the weather will control the world.
Destruction more severe than nuclear war. What is weather warfare? Question mark. That headline is from WION News in India. That's WION. They say reports have said that weather warfare could give China an edge in future conflicts. The WION News India report then states, modifying weather for warfare gains is an old concept and has been used in previous wars. So why do people continue to try to marginalize this subject in the U.S.? Because they're too afraid to face it, and they've been trained to spew out the conspiracy theory mantra without a second thought. Lastly, WION asks, so what is weather warfare? Question mark. WION decodes the story. For the record, there's nearly 9 million subscribers on YouTube for this channel. Huge channel, but only 35,000 views on this dire report in 12 days. Why so few with nearly 9 million YouTube subscribers? To find a geoengineeringwatch.org report on Google, it's not easy. The censorship of the climate engineering issue is increasingly obvious, and there are many reasons for this. Of course, geoengineeringwatch.org was once top of the first page for any search of the geoengineering term. About 4 years ago, literally overnight, we were disappeared from a search of that term. Yes, if you search our exact website term, you can find us, but only then. Google has made it very hard to find our reports. No accident. New from the UK Guardian. Godfathers of climate chaos. UN chief urges global carbon fuel advertising ban. In regard to this report, first, is digging up and burning hundreds of millions of tons of carbon fuel every single day a problem? Yes. Are global climate disruption operations an even bigger problem? Yes. And that's saying a lot, given the degree to which the planet has been trashed in the last 200 plus years. Remember, the equation we face is complex. It's not a this or that scenario, but rather it's a this and that problem. Every single form of human activity that affects the energy balance of the planet is a part of the problem, aka how much solar heat gets into the atmosphere as compared to how much gets out, and the functioning characteristics of the biosphere also being decimated by countless forms of human activity, climate engineering at the top of the list. On that note, from astrobiological.com, terraforming/geoengineering. Clouds dissipate quickly during solar eclipses as the land surface cools. This is a follow-up report that further confirms solar radiation management operations and chemical ice nucleation cloud seeding may provide temporary and toxic surface cooling at the cost of diminishing and damaging the planet's own beyond miraculous cloud making and planet cooling processes. Technology isn't saving us, it's pounding the final nails into our collective coffins. Question: were covert geoengineering operations ever intended to be benevolent? Short answer, no. What's occurring in our skies is, was, and always will be about power and control until nothing is left. The global predatory parasite class has and is covertly controlling food supplies. Climate disruption operations are and have been their crown jewel weapon. The weapon with which they can bring populations to their knees without those populations ever even knowing they're under assault. Just blame nature. Again, am I saying there's nothing else wrong with the planet's life support systems other than geoengineering destruction? No, I'm absolutely not saying that. I've never said that. Anyone that believes climate engineering is our only problem is not looking through a clear lens. All that being said, of all the endless forms of human-inflicted damage to our formerly thriving planet, the totality of decimation from the global geoengineering operations is the worst. And again, that's saying a lot. Only a full-scale nuclear exchange could eclipse the damage done by climate engineering at this point. So let's pretend for a moment that there's only one near-term existential threat, Earth's collapsing ozone layer, which climate engineering operations are the core causal factor for. Atmospheric aerosol spraying by geoengineering jets and the radio frequency microwave manipulation of these nanoparticles in the atmosphere. So consider that this single issue, the disintegrating ozone layer, all by itself, holds life on Earth in the extremely near-term balance. The sun burns on your skin because you're now being exposed to UV radiation levels that are far higher than any official agency is disclosing, including UVC radiation, the last spectrum of UV radiation before X-ray. Think about that. The following is the most recent message I've received from the former NASA contract engineer that meters UV radiation for geoengineeringwatch.org, with state-of-the-art equipment which Geoengineering Watch supplied to him. Quote, "Just a guess, Dane, but I think the last HAARP project, that's the ionosphere heater in Alaska, HAARP, H-A-A-R-P, the acronym, dealt with the manipulation of metal vapors and the nanoparticulates in the upper atmosphere. Probably," he says, "what caused the recent extreme auroras." He continues, "Multiple wavelengths will cause fluorescence on those particles and a consequential reaction in thermal distribution between the particles." He then states, and this is important, "It's like trying to start a chain reaction." He then says there's only one way I know of that can explain all this activity, and that is artificial intelligence programs. And I think the instruction to the AI was, find ways to thermodynamically control the upper atmosphere with the least amount of power. Our metering engineer continues with this. All atomic structures are resonant at some wavelength. The problem is, once you find the resonant wavelength, other factors come into the equation like runaway oscillations that have atmospheric feedback mechanisms we didn't know existed until it was too late. He finishes with this, children with their toys. Eventually, the house burns down. Signed, Ray. The key word in the statement I just covered from our UV metering expert. Runaway. Based on all available data, countless forms of destructive human activities, with climate engineering again at the top of the list, have triggered a runaway climate collapse scenario. Every single day that geoengineers continue to further ramp up their shockingly visible insanity in our skies is further fueling the overall meltdown and contamination of everything everywhere. This ubiquitous contamination is in addition to an endless list of other contaminants, including over 15,000 PFAS forever chemicals now in every single drop of rain. Some of these chemicals everywhere on the planet. Been over this in many broadcasts. More of these chemicals are being added to this list all the time. Even the constant chemical ice nucleation cloud seeding operations that temporarily and toxically cool surface temperatures are contributing to the overall long-term heating of the planet because it's damaging the planet's life support systems. Industrialized, militarized so-called societies are a runaway train at this point of self-annihilation. Buckle up. If you think it's been bad, you won't like what's coming. And so many times I've been told, if you don't have a magic solution, I don't want to hear about the problem. Really? Is that how it's supposed to work? I don't think so. Any potential solution at this late hour is a difficult road at best with the odds against us. But does that mean we should just sit down and give up? No, not going to happen. I will never abandon my post, ever. Whatever comes, knowing that you can look yourself in the mirror, your children in the eyes, and face your Creator without turning away in shame is worth every single painful and arduous step in this proverbial journey of 1,000 miles. Face the storm head on. Never give up, ever. That's where solace lies. On the subject of runaway scenarios and the house burning down, new from the UK Guardian, brutal heat wave cooks U.S. Southwest, an early sign of sizzling summer ahead. From that report, millions of Americans are sweltering as the experts warn early heat could herald next record-smashing summer. They continue. More than 34 million people were under heat alerts on Thursday afternoon as warnings were issued from the southern tip of Texas across Arizona and Nevada and up through the center of California to the northern part of the state, aka Redding, where I live, where 2 nights ago it was 80 plus degrees at 1 o'clock in the morning, and it's not even summer, and that's higher than the daytime high temperatures should be. Nighttime low temperatures are rising twice as fast as daytime highs if there's no moisture in the atmosphere for the climate engineers to chemically nucleate and thus lower surface temperatures temporarily and toxically, because that's exactly what they're doing. The Guardian report continues with this. Experts have warned this could be just the start of another record-smashing season with the potential to usurp 2023 as the world's hottest year. A 3-month outlook on seasonal temperatures published by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, who has a federal gag order on them, by the way. They simply put out the scheduled weather from those who orchestrate the weather, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, and the rest. They say forecast is for above average temperatures for most of the country throughout the summer. They would know, wouldn't they? And keep in mind, there is so much inertia by the thermal energy buildup of the planet that such a conclusion is a given at this point. The variable is, where will they flash cool regions with chemical ice nucleation operations, and where will they superheat other regions with ionosphere heater-induced high-pressure heat domes? Question, are official high temperatures being routinely misreported? Yes, absolutely, but in the opposite direction of what so many desperately want to convince themselves of. Official high temperatures are all too often being underreported, not overreported. Translation, it's even hotter than we're being told. And about the heat index readings, aka the feels-like temperatures, also being underreported, and also not even including the extreme UV radiation as part of the equation. It's the extreme UV exposure that is now causing such rapid heat buildup on surfaces. For example, in parked cars. If the windows are rolled up, the interiors heat up with profound speed. Thus the reason the locked inside a car fatalities are increasing rapidly. The sun feels hot on your skin because the atmosphere has been damaged. Climate engineering is a core causal factor, but there are many other factors connected to human activities, including rocket launches, satellite launches. The list is long. And about everything reported on this broadcast, please don't believe me. Please actually investigate for yourself. Honest and objective investigation, not the kind that just looks for someone to tell you what you want to hear. Global conflicts, carnage, chaos, and climate engineering, all controlled by the same core of power. But that core is now increasingly splintering. Factions are infighting, making the near-term horizon darker and more dangerous than ever before. About the wider horizon, there's a great deal of mind-numbing, all-over-the-board speculation about how the global predator-parasite class is going to further thin the herd. Every imaginable science fiction scenario is being belched out by sources that should stick to the facts, not off-the-deep-end speculation. Am I denying that the controllers are desperately trying to cull populations? No. I've absolutely never denied that. To the contrary, I've been desperately trying to sound the alarm for over 2 years, and the thinning of the herd efforts by the matrix manipulators have been taking place at lower levels for many decades. But here's the bottom line. If the human race remains on the current course of total biosphere destruction from a million different directions with climate disruption operations, aka weather warfare, at the top of the list, the controllers don't need to do anything else. We'll all be gone in the extremely near-term horizon. No nuclear war needed. No sci-fi fabricated fables needed. Just game over. Dead planet. No one gets out alive. Don't believe such a conclusion is even possible or close to occurring? I understand. Who'd want to believe things are this bad? But unfortunately, based on all available data from the front lines, it is this bad and getting worse by the day. On that sobering note, this is Dane Wigington. You're listening to the weekly installment of the commercial-free, non-political Global Alert News Report, the End of the World as We Know It broadcast, brought to you by Geoengineeringwatch.org, the largest and most visited website in the world on the subject of global climate engineering operations, aka weather warfare. Reaching a critical mass of awareness has been, is, and will continue to be the only way forward in this fight. We must reach this critical mass by starting a conversation on the climate engineering issue that leads people to a credible source of data. Geoengineeringwatch.org will continue all of our efforts to be the go-to source on covert climate engineering operations. Start a conversation on climate engineering with Geoengineering Watch awareness-raising materials available on our homepage. Again, if we can fully expose weather warfare, so many other truths will be forced to the full light of day with it. Moving on, no trees, no people. Simple. The end of the great northern forests, ? The tiny tree-killing beetle wreaking havoc on our ancient giants. That report's from the UK Guardian, and this is, again, an ongoing, unfolding, worsening catastrophe. Trees all over the planet dying. In fact, we've already lost 2/3 of the tree cover we had before the dawn of civilization. Think about that. And the remaining third is dead and dying by the day. The Guardian report then says, forests across Europe, the US, and Canada have been hit hard by drought, fires, and bark beetles. Now scientists fear the Northern Hemisphere's greatest carbon sink is nearing a tipping point. Not true. It's far past a tipping point. I'll continue in a moment on that. They say the giant sequoia is so enormous that it was once believed to be indestructible. High in California's southern Sierra Nevada mountains, the oldest trees, known as monarchs, have stood for more than 2,000 years. Today, however, in Sequoia National Park, huge trunks lie sprawled on the forest floor like blue whale carcasses stranded on a beach. About the dying of the trees, please search geoengineeringwatch.org in that exact title, The Dying of the Trees. It's so much more than just a beetle. Beetle is a symptom of a sick, dead, dying tree. When you have extreme UV radiation frying the tree's foliage, causing it to shut its stomata, it can't breathe, can't absorb carbon, can't release oxygen, toxic rain coming down full of contaminants, not just nanoplastics, but nanometals, aluminum, barium, strontium, manganese, surfactants, graphene. The list is long. We don't know the totality of what's in that list. Killing soil microbiome, affecting root systems. All of these things together are wiping out the trees. The climate engineers don't care about the consequences of what they do. The global power structure has never cared, have they? Thus, Project Starfish Prime and things like it, detonating hydrogen bombs in the magnetosphere with no consideration of the consequences, nor the 2,400 other nuclear weapons they've detonated with no public knowledge or consent. They just did it because they can, because the public doesn't want to be bothered. The vast majority of the public does not want to be bothered. They want to watch political circus and pursue personal pleasures until nothing's left, and that has to change. That has to change, or we have no chance. Zero, none. And I know no one wants to hear that. I know I'm not going to be popular for saying that, but I'm not here to be popular. I don't care about that. I care about telling the truth, no matter how bitter that pill is. That's what I'll continue to do no matter what happens until I can't. Until I'm no longer standing. About all the filth in our skies that's filtering down through the atmosphere where we all get to breathe it. Here's a follow-up study from phys.org. Study maps human uptake of microplastics across 109 countries. The study assesses dietary uptake by compiling data on microplastics concentrations in subcategories of major food groups such as fruits, vegetables, proteins, grains, dairy, drinks, sugars, salt, and spices. Everything. It's in everything at this point. The models, they say, also use data detailing how much of those foods are consumed in different countries. Data on airborne microplastics concentrations, age, demographic, human respiration rates were used to calculate microplastics being inhaled. Here's the bottom line. Everyone, everywhere, is inhaling atmospheric nanoparticle fallout, not just microplastics, but metals like aluminum, barium, strontium, surfactants, graphene. Again, the list goes on and on. Question. What else might be hitching a ride on all those atmospheric nanoparticles? Again, keep in mind you can fit 100,000 nanoparticles across the width of a single human hair. What else is hitching onto these particles? Accidentally or by design? An estimated 40 to 60 million tons of these particles are estimated to be connected to the climate engineering fallout. Here's another question. Is this next new headline another puzzle piece? Are yet more herd-thinning measures in store for all of us? From ScienceAlert.com, scientists preparing bird flu vaccines for humans in case of pandemic. The Science Alert report then states, deployment of these vaccines, if needed, will still require cooperation across many different countries and agencies which the World Health Organization is working to ensure. Yes, I'm sure the World Health Organization and the money printers that control it are working very hard to protect us all from ourselves. Back to biosphere collapse. And yes, it's real, and it's now, and accelerating by the day, with climate engineering further fanning the flames. Let's rewind first to this ominous 2016 report from IFLScience.com. Beautiful blue lakes appearing in East Antarctica hint at a terrible future. I referred back to this past report because it is absolutely a harbinger of what is happening now. The lakes they're speaking about are melt lakes on the surface of land-based ice, lakes that form from rapid melting and then drain through moulins. This is a hole that goes through the glacier down to the bedrock. This lubricates the glacier on the bedrock, making it slide faster into the ocean. And we have the sea-based ice also calving, disappearing. That's the cleat that holds the land-based ice back on land. All of this is occurring at once, all of this contributing to ever more rapid sea level rise And that's being felt around the world right now. Places like Venice, Miami Beach, it's getting worse quickly. New from the UK Guardian, let's add this. Oceans face triple threat of extreme heat, oxygen loss, and acidification. The report then states extreme conditions are becoming far more intense in recent decades and placing enormous stress upon the planet's marine life. The Guardian report continues, the combination of dropping oxygen levels, rising acidification, and soaring ocean heat was also seen at the end of the Permian period about 252 million years ago when Earth experienced the largest known extinction event in its history known as the Great Dying. It's all of Earth's oceans, Earth's one ocean, it's all connected. And what's happening now is far worse than the Great Dying because what's happening now is happening exponentially faster than any previous mass extinction, which makes it exponentially worse. From ScienceAlert.com, this hurricane season could be so bad we might run out of names. Yes, the scheduled weather. Remember, the U.S. military initiated its hurricane modification programs in 1947 with Project Cirrus. If you doubt that they are still conducting such operations to this day on an unimaginably more massive scale, time to do more research. It's essential to form data-based conclusions, not ideologically based ones. Moving on from IFLScience.com, hurricanes are now so strong, scientists want to introduce Category 6 storms. The report says in a new study, researchers have proposed that authorities should think about introducing a new category, Category 6, to define hurricanes and typhoons that have wind speeds exceeding 309 kilometers per hour. That's 192 miles per hour. Wow. That doesn't bode well for coastal anyone. That strength of storm would wipe human habitations right off the map. Perhaps that's the plan. You decide. I wonder if the oil drilling platforms in the record-warm Gulf of Mexico will magically continue to be missed by the coming scheduled catastrophic cyclones. We'll soon find out. Anyone remember Acapulco? The mediocre tropical storm that became a Cat 5, strongest ever, to hit that region of the world in 12 hours. Rapid intensification, which is now also the norm, just like the constant 4-inch hail, the norm. People just accept anything, everything. They accept skies that look like something out of a science fiction movie with jet aircraft clearly dispersing in our skies. It's not jet exhaust. Again, use common sense. You don't have a grid pattern one day and nothing the next with the same atmospheric conditions. We have up-close photographs of these nozzles retrofitted on wing pylons aimed at the exhaust jet stream, up-close film footage turning dispersions on and off. This whole jet exhaust narrative is getting really, really old at this point. The final fallback of those who simply don't have the courage to face the truth. Moving on, about those rising sea levels from GIST.org. The homeowner mutiny leaving Florida cities defenseless against hurricanes. From that report, the federal government is refusing to restore eroded beaches unless homeowners agree to one condition: public access. For the record, seaside Florida everything is already on borrowed time. Not that being seaside in that part of the world is so great anymore anyway, given the degree of superheated seas, dead fish, dead coral, hydrogen sulfide emitting dead seaweed washing up everywhere, and flesh-eating bacteria. Sounds like a great holiday vacation. About ocean health, also not good. From KOIN.com, Oregon tide pools struggle to cope with climate change, study shows. Yes, the tide pool's all but dead. When I was young in the Pacific side of Baja California, the tide pools were so full of life, there was literally lobsters in the tide pools where we went. Huge clams everywhere. Now there's next to nothing anywhere, and nobody questions it. From the New York Times, how changing ocean temperatures could upend life on Earth. No, not could, not may, not might, is. Canfield Ocean is unfolding. If it reaches fruition, game over. Oceans die, we die. From ScienceHub.com, Earth's atmosphere is trapping twice as much heat as it did in 1993. From that report, Earth's energy imbalance, I've spoken about this so many times on this broadcast, is a key measure of global warming. It has doubled in the past 20 years, raising concerns about how much heat the oceans are absorbing. They're superheating. Nighttime lows are rising twice as fast as daytime highs. This is indicative of heat that is not escaping back into the atmosphere. And yes, climate engineering is making it worse, not better, trapping more heat than it deflects. Everything we are doing right now is wrong. The Science Hub report then states oceans have been warming at record-breaking rates every year since 2019. The rate of increase has jumped sharply even since 2022. Recent studies also suggest the excess warmth is penetrating into the deep ocean to depths above 2,000 meters. This heat will take thousands of years to resurface, they say. Well, we don't have that long. We don't have centuries. We don't have decades. And they say in the meantime, the changes could be permanent. Again, not could, not may, not might, are permanent in any time frame that matters. Can't be undone. Does that mean we give up, sit down, and do nothing? No, it absolutely doesn't mean that. It's our absolute responsibility to fight on for as long as we can, to bring the insanity to a halt, salvage what is yet left of the planet so that someone might make it through what's coming. From DW.com, heatflation in Middle East. How high will food prices go? People have no idea what's coming. The report says extreme heat or heatflation is raising food prices everywhere. Researchers say that in the Middle East and other hotter regions, it will be even worse and negative impacts will be greater. Let's not forget, immediately after 9/11, when the Middle Eastern countries that were to be targeted were named by General Wesley Clark, a list he was given before 9/11 even happened, every single one of those countries subsequently underwent a once-in-1,000-year drought. Not coincidence. Climate intervention operations, as the leaders of those countries, in the case of Iran, stated on film, on the record, on the floor of the UN, that NATO was cutting off rain to their countries. This is business as usual, been happening for so many decades. Project Popeye in Vietnam, controlling precipitation, and people still pretend it isn't going on. What about fish for food? From Scripps Institute of Oceanography, global analysis of seafood found that fish populations throughout the world's oceans are contaminated with industrial and agricultural pollutants, collectively known as persistent organic pollutants. They make it sound like there's something natural, organic pollutants. There's nothing organic about the chemicals that are now completely contaminating our entire world. Question, does that mean we should stick to eating, quote, freshwater fish? Not so much. From the TimesLeader.com and many other sources, study freshwater fish more contaminated than saltwater fish. That doesn't bode well, does it? We have our government looking the other way when they dump 500,000 barrels of DDT off the LA coast, and we now have, 17 or 18 other sites off the coast of Southern California between there and Hawaii identified as ocean dump sites. Now let's just treat it like a big toxic waste bin and think we're going to live very long on this planet. Not the case. There's more. New from centralmaine.com. Maine stocks PFAS-laden waters with fish. Warns, quote, do not eat. The report continues. Chock full of forever chemicals, the fishing holes next to Fairfield's Youth Athletic Complex are believed to be some of the most polluted waters in Maine. Yet the state still stocks these ponds every year with hatchery-raised brook trout for local children to catch. Oh, joy. This is how the system works, so pay attention. Scientists worry that some anglers will still consume the trout tainted by forever chemicals. Of course they will. Why else would they be there fishing? One environmental watchdog group calls the State Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Practice, quote, super disturbing. How about skies that are filled with filth that are infecting everything? Super disturbing as well? Unless you just pretend it isn't so until there's nothing left. Welcome to the weather warfare, soon-to-be planetary wasteland. About climate sacrifice zones, or perhaps intentional climate engineering sacrifice zones. You decide. From MSN.com, UK weather forecast, dome of sinking air to spark huge U-turn as blast of warmth hits. This is from the soaked and kept chemically cool UK, now about to bake. They say a split jet stream astride a dome of sinking air will open the doors to blue summer skies and sunshine. They can flick the switch whenever they want to. Keep that in mind. Ionosphere heater causes an electrical chain reaction in the electrically charged ionosphere, superheating it, expanding the atmosphere up and down. The downward push of sinking air, now labeled high-pressure heat dome. The report says Britain's weather is about to take a major U-turn as drizzle and showers give way to a blast of warmth. Weather whiplash, now the norm, like the 4-inch hail and all the other anomalous climate engineering tainted so-called weather. The jet stream, they say, will split, sending branches north and south of the UK as high pressure builds in between. High pressure, the driver of summer sunshine, will force dry air groundwards, stabilizing the atmosphere and stopping the rain. Again, ionosphere heaters, they can control pressure zones, which steers upper level wind currents, which then steers moisture. It's like the fan belt in the front of a car. The upper level winds in the northern hemisphere wrap clockwise around a high pressure zone, counterclockwise around a low pressure zone, and they are unimaginably effective at steering this now with frequency transmissions and atmospheric aerosol dispersions. From Wired.com, Ecuador is literally powerless in the face of drought. This report says drought-stricken hydro dams have led to daily electricity cuts in Ecuador as weather becomes less predictable due to, they say, climate change. No legitimate discussion about climate anything. Keep that in mind. No discussion from any perspective without first and foremost addressing climate engineering, which is completely omitted by all matrix media everywhere, all ultimately controlled major media by the same core of power. Experts say other countries need to take notice. Ecuador is in trouble. Drought has shrunk its reservoirs and its hydroelectric dams have had to power down. The government has been forced to cut electricity to homes for hours at a stretch, and in mid-April, President Daniel Noboa declared a 60-day state of emergency. Since then, homeowners have been taking cold showers and struggling without internet access. That's the least of their problems, or will be soon. While restaurants have been serving up meals by candlelight to avoid closing and losing perishable food, while other regions are underwater. Think about that. Drought deluge scenarios, the hallmark of climate disruption operations. From phys.org, after historic floods, as I just mentioned, Brazil braces for severe drought. Flick the switch, swing the pendulum back and forth, completely brutalizing populations and then blaming it on nature or global warming alone. And again, it is a complex equation, not a this or that equation. And the climate disruption operations, single biggest factor of all, not the only factor. From WRI.org, that's the World Resources Institute, 25 countries housing 1/4 of the population face extremely high water stress. For the record, World Resources Institute conclusion is conservative at best. On the current trajectory, it's a gross underestimation of how bad it is. Even so, the WRI report tries to candy coat the data by wrapping it in blatant lies. They state the following: water stress could majorly disrupt economies and agricultural production. Let's make it clear. One, there's no uncontaminated drop of rainwater anywhere on the planet. Science, study, proven fact. And two, once the planet superheats enough, soils are sterilized, ozone layer destroyed, it's done. There's no disruption of economies and agriculture. It's done. We're done. Web of life done. They finished with this: by 2050, an additional 1 billion people are expected to live with extremely high water stress, even if the world limits global temperature rise to 1.3 degrees. Oops, too late on that. Unfiltered frontline data indicates we're past 3.5 C now. Data being skewed by falsification and flash chemical ice nucleation cloud seeding surface cooldowns, skewing the data. Everywhere, it's a giant Truman experiment that we're living in right now, all of us. And so many so willing to stay completely oblivious until the moment of impact. The tale of the human race and so-called civilizations built on the fantastically false narrative of endless exploitation, economic everything built on the patently false premise of perpetual extraction from a finite planet with finite resources. How obvious can it be at this point that we're already neck deep in the overshoot on steroids phase of global collapse of everything everywhere all at once? If you don't believe it, it doesn't matter. The eyes wide shut strategy won't stop what's coming. Indeed, what's already unfolding and accelerating. You're listening to the weekly installment of Global Alert News, the Bad News Broadcast, installment number 461, June 8th, 2024. This is Dane Wigington, your host. Global Alert News is brought to you by Geoengineeringwatch.org, the largest and most visited website in the world in the subject of climate intervention operations known as geoengineering. Recordings of the commercial-free, non-political Global Alert News Hour broadcast can be found on the homepage of Geoengineeringwatch.org under the recent column and on the Dane Wigington YouTube channel. Geoengineering Watch wishes to express our deepest gratitude to those that have helped us to expand our reach and thus our voice in this desperate last-hour effort to sound the alarm. Those people know who they are. Thank you. If you're on our email list, please put us on your email contact book so that our mailouts don't go to the spam files. Please help us to share the groundbreaking documentary, The Dimming, which fully exposes the climate engineering atrocities, now with over 12 million views and still climbing. in spite of all the censorship. The best way to share is by circulating the direct link to the dimming by email directly from the homepage of geoengineeringwatch.org. Sharing directly helps us to overcome social media censorship, which there is no shortage of, and it's getting worse. When viewing our YouTube of the dimming or Global Alert News or any other Geoengineering Watch video on YouTube, please subscribe, share, and comment, all of which helps us to circulate critically important data to a much wider audience. And how do we reach those that still aren't looking up? Here's one way: by starting a conversation with Geoengineering Watch awareness-raising materials, which can be found on our homepage. Our only goal, to provide activists what they need to move this fight forward, and we need that help. We can't do it alone at geoengineeringwatch.org. I have not left my post for 20 plus years, but I can't do this alone. And I know there's many dedicated activists that are giving their all to this fight, and I'm extremely grateful for you. And for those that are still sitting the bench, please get up and march with us in this battle while there's still time to make a difference. Our materials are extremely high quality, full color, shocking images, pictures worth 1,000 words, as the proverb goes. We have Geoengineering Watch hoodies, Geoengineering Watch shirts. Photos of both are on our homepage. These are great conversation starters, images front and back. And once the conversation starts, you can open the door. We have scannable business cards, bumper stickers, both also effective tools to help strike up a conversation on the climate engineering issue and reaching a critical mass of awareness on the climate engineering onslaught. Again, the great imperative of our time. If we can expose it, we have a chance of stopping it from the inside out. What do I mean by that? I mean those that are participating, actively or passively, need to stand down. Stop participating in your own demise. Look your children in the eyes and understand you owe them your life. It's your responsibility not to participate in their demise. Stand down. In any activity that you know is wrong, stand down. If you're willing to share a picture of yourself with a Geoengineering Watch t-shirt or hoodie, perhaps at a local mall, somewhere busy or crowded, please send us your photo so that we can post it as part of our activist compilation, which is now part of our materials page. The images encourage others to make their voices heard in this all-important battle to sound the alarm while there's still time to make a difference. And to those that are giving their all to this battle based on their individual circumstances and challenges, you have my deepest gratitude. We march together in this battle. It's our collective efforts that can still make a difference at this late hour. On the subject of further fueling global ecological collapse, climate disruption operations continue to lead the way. Remember and consider extreme drought and deluge scenarios are hallmarks of climate intervention operations, aka covert weather warfare. On that note, from DWTV Germany, are extreme floods the new normal for Germany? ? Drought, deluge scenarios. Some places drying up, blowing away, other places going under. I need to detour for a moment. Please forgive me, it's important. On the subject of Germany and warfare, and since we just passed the 80th anniversary of D-Day, which was highly covered by Matrix Media as being a major symbol of what it takes to, quote, protect freedom and democracy. Is that what wars are really all about? Not just then, but to this day. Let's backtrack to this past report from the UK Guardian, though this information can be found with many other sources. Here's the headline: How Bush's grandfather helped Hitler's rise to power. The Guardian report then states George Bush's grandfather, the late U.S. Senator Prescott Bush, was a director and shareholder of companies that profited from their involvement with the financial backers of Nazi Germany. The Guardian has obtained confirmation from newly discovered files in the U.S. National Archives that a firm of which Prescott Bush was a director was involved with the financial architects of Nazism. Documents, many of which were only declassified recently, show that even after America had entered the war and when there was already significant information about the Nazis' plans and policies, Prescott Bush worked for and profited from companies closely involved with the very German businesses that financed Hitler's rise to power. It has also been suggested that the money he made from these dealings helped to establish the Bush family fortune and set up its political dynasty. Remarkably, the report states, little of Bush's dealings with Germany has received public scrutiny. Public doesn't pay attention to anything, do they? The sky could be on fire. The public doesn't seem to care. As long as the football games are still scheduled and the pizza's available and the beer, I don't have any words anymore. Nobody cares about reality, how we got here or where we're going. That needs to change soon. More from the report. Again, Prescott Bush was the founder of the Bush political dynasty and was once considered a potential presidential candidate himself. Like his son George and his grandson George W., he went to Yale, where he was again, like his descendants, a member of the secretive and influential Skull and Bones Student Society. The U.S. government and the Bush family deny all the claims against them. The Bush family recently approved a flattering biography of Prescott Bush entitled Duty, Honor, and Country by Mickey Herskowitz. What a surprise. Just rewrite history. Business as usual to this day. So back to D-Day. If you think it was all just about protecting and preserving freedom and democracy, think again about how it started, who fueled and funded it, and why. There's so much more to the story that the vast majority don't know, and sadly, don't seem to want to know. From Mark Twain's essay as regards patriotism, forgive me while I'm on this note. I'll get back to the biosphere in a moment. From the essay, man is the only patriot. He sets himself apart in his own country under his own flag and sneers at the other nations and keeps multitudinous uninformed assassins on hand at heavy expense to grab slices of other people's countries and keep them from grabbing slices of his. And in the intervals between campaigns, he washes the blood off his hands and works for, quote, the universal brotherhood of man with his mouth, aka servitude of empire. Twain continues, we teach them to take their patriotism at second hand, to shout with the largest crowd without examining into the right or wrong of the matter, exactly as boys under monarchies are taught and have always been taught. We teach them to regard as traitors and hold in aversion and contempt those who do not shout with the crowd. And so here in our, quote, democracy, we are cheering a thing which of all things is the most foreign to it, aka democracy, and out of place, the delivery of our political conscience into somebody else's keeping. End quote from Twain. Question: how many have truly summoned the courage to think and act for themselves? How many continue to blindly march to the drums of empire and its matrix media weapon of mass deception, propaganda machine? More breaking reports on the bottom line of biosphere collapse from the Times of India. Heat waves should be declared a national calamity. From MSN.com, Indian capital Delhi breaks all-time heat record as authorities impose water rationing. From that report, India's capital territory of Delhi sweltered to its highest ever temperature of 121.8 degrees Fahrenheit. We don't know what the humidity was. It seems they're making that harder and harder to find, but if there was any significant humidity, those are heat indexes in the 150 plus range. That's the feels like temperature. People are dying there. Water shortages were caused by the acute heat wave as well, the report says. From phys.org, the Delhi heat wave is testing the limits of human endurance. Other hot countries should beware and prepare. Can't really prepare for what's coming if we stay on this course, because no one will survive if we do not change course. And the wet bulb effect, if you don't know what that is, please look it up. That's when the humidity is too high for the human body to cool itself, heat index goes through the roof, and survival is not long if the temperatures get too high. From AccuWeather, India's scorching heat and lack of water leave Delhi's poor to suffer worse climate crisis. There's no fresh water, the report says, in the slums of Delhi. It's 121 degrees Fahrenheit, the hottest temperature on record. The sun belts off the tin roofs and the shanties. Desperate people wait for drinking water to be delivered. When it arrives, there's chaos. In recent years, the summer heat has come earlier. Temperatures have risen higher and higher, and heat waves have lengthened. This is all from the report. Then there's Haiti. Then there's many other countries in Africa. There's so many countries descending into chaos, and you wouldn't know a thing about that here, would you? While we watch various chapters of political stupidity, theater, one trial after another, one side then the other. It's just impossible to believe that people could think that's the only thing going on in the world. It's unimaginable to me. From BusinessInsider.com, Mexico City is just beginning. Here are 11 other cities at risk of running out of water. Drought, deluge scenarios, climate engineers control the spigot. Keep that in mind. They say there's 11 other cities at high risk of running out of water. Many are located in the 25 most water-stressed countries worldwide, according to the World Resources Institute. Even a short-term drought puts these places in danger of running out of water and prompts governments to shut off the taps. How long before Mad Max? It's already happening. Look at Haiti. It's complete chaos. And if you think we're immune to that here, think again. From Axios.com, dangerous heat waves threaten to break more records across U.S. Southwest. From NPR, a California town wiped off the map by wildfires, still recovering 5 years on. These go hand in hand. That's why these headlines are together. You dry out a region, and then you incinerate it. Climate engineering is core to both of these scenarios. Please take the time, if you care about anyone's future, search the engineering drought section on the homepage of geoengineeringwatch.org. Please search the engineering wildfire section. And about the Paradise Fire, which is the one they're speaking about here, geoengineeringwatch.org captured time-lapse film footage of blanket aerosol grid pattern spraying on top of the Paradise Fire smoke canopy. Why would they do that? These are incendiary particles that filter down through the smoke canopy and can only further fuel that fire. We captured it. It's in the Geoengineering Watch groundbreaking documentary, The Dimming. Please consider what's going on here. Search Wildfires Serve Geoengineering Agenda, one of our most important reports. Please research. Please actually research. Don't just fall back to someone said this and someone else said that and you don't know what to believe. Please believe what you research, what you see, what you conclude. No one else. From the LA Times, how much worse will the heat get by 2050? A new report outlines a worrisome future. No need to worry about 2050 in the current course. No need. We will never get anywhere near that far. Shockingly obvious, global climate intervention operations continue to completely derail the planet's attempts to respond to the damage done from countless other sources of human activity. They leave nothing alone. This week over Northern California, as convective cumulus clouds tried to form, they're blown apart. Anybody that's observed any weather phenomenon over past decades would easily see this, but nobody seems to. All willfully blind, these beautiful cauliflower-looking thunderheads that begin to rise are suddenly blown apart in what looks like a big diffuse smoke bank, like there's a fire burning on the horizon somewhere. And this is patented process, is easily done. Aerosolizing this moisture and exposing it to frequency transmissions blows it apart into a big, ugly, diffuse, looks like a smoke bank. They're trying to block out as much of the sky as they can with this moisture. That's what solar radiation management is. How is it possible? I wrestle with this every day that so few people look up and take notice of anything. And how is it that so-called experts say nothing about what's happening in our skies, events that I just described and so much more? They are either completely clueless of the field in which we're told they're experts or they're lying. Take your pick. Moving on from USA Today, Earth marks 12 straight months of record heat, a bewildering climate change milestone, the headline says. Report says experts agree human-caused climate change is primarily to blame, but there's a confusing array of other factors that have led to a perfect storm of heat. They continue. There it is again. The so-called experts that just can't figure out what's going on in our skies and how it's impacting everything, including the air we breathe. It's a true circus of insanity. From DWTV in Germany, temperatures smash records 12 months in a row. From CNN, UN chief says world is on highway to climate hell as planet endures 12 straight months of unprecedented heat. Every single month from June 2023 to May 2024 was the world's hottest month on record, each month breaking the previous month's record. Think about that. From USA Today, global heat records set 12 months in a row, fueled by climate change. Let's not forget climate engineering, which they will never mention. From Fox News, Earth records hottest man record in 12 consecutive months of record heat. The Fox News report then makes this moronic statement. Climate change could cut half a year off life expectancy, but they say it's not too late to reverse the trend. What a moronic statement in both cases. If we continue on the current course, there will be no life, not just human, but the web of life as well. That's a statistical, mathematical certainty on the current course. And yes, it's way too late to return to the planet we've known, done, gone, in the rearview mirror over 2 decades ago. And this last headline example, though there are dozens more available online, from CBS News. World hits 12 straight months of record high temperatures, but as warming continues, the headline says, it will be remembered as comparatively cold, aka it's going to get far worse soon. Next from theconversation.com, an intergenerational crime against humanity. What will it take for political leaders to start taking climate change seriously? Question mark. Here's a question for theconversation.com. What will it take for Matrix Media to start telling the truth about climate engineering, and then maybe our so-called elected officials, which are simply puppets in the power structure play, might be forced to either tell the truth or quit? Either option is okay from where I stand. Question, is the human race, which we're all told is an intelligent life form, smart enough to survive itself? Short of a complete course correction, the answer is a resounding no. Next question, are the majority in so-called modern societies smart enough to know if and when they're getting dumber? And that includes all of us, because we're all breathing the same neurologically destructive particles in the air, and our IQs are dropping. Science study proven fact. Here's a past report from U.S. News. Dumb and Dumber. That's the headline. Study says humans are slowly losing their smarts. From the report, if an average citizen from Athens of 1000 BC were to suddenly appear among us, he or she would be among the brightest and most intellectually alive of our colleagues and companions. With a good memory, a broad range of ideas, and clear-sighted view of important issues. The report then states, quote, intelligence doesn't play as significant a selection in our present supportive, wonderful society, end quote. And for the record, nor does morality, neither of which bodes well for the fate of the human race. Industrialized, militarized societies, megacities to massive militaries, all castles of sand, about to be swept away and swallowed up by the collapse of everything, everywhere, all at once. Not permanent, temporary, all of it. Humanity, the final century. That's a quote. That's a headline by Daniel John Carey. How humans have been living is causing global ecocide and the mass destruction of nature. If it continues, all evidence points to it causing the extinction of such a wide variety of species within the coming decades, no, even sooner than that. And temperatures so high with rising oceans and the instability of so much land that humanity will not survive. The report continues, the complete collapse of society, including the end of monetary, food, energy, water, sanitation, emergency, medical transportation, communication, industrial and government systems and services, the meltdown of hundreds of nuclear power plants, and the end of humanity. This century, it says. If only that were true. Not this century. We don't have decades on the current course. Far less. Here's the bottom line. If we're to have any chance of changing course at this late hour, any chance of waking the sleeping masses that don't want to hear or see any news that's unpleasant and thus unwanted, we must stand on rock-solid foundations of verifiable facts, not personal beliefs and absolutely off-the-reservation speculation. The bottom line is this. If we're to have any chance of changing course at this late hour, any chance of waking the sleeping masses that do not want to hear or see any news that is unpleasant and thus unwanted, we must stand on a rock-solid foundation of verifiable facts, not personal beliefs and off-the-reservation speculation. Unfortunately, some sources are disseminating blends of information, disinformation, and science fiction movie-like speculation mixed up with personal beliefs. Some of the claims for such sources are that the damage being done on our planet and to us is from, quote, aliens or demons that apparently look like humans. Stop for a moment and think about that kind of claim. Is it even remotely rational to believe that this kind of claim is going to gain credibility in any demographic of the population that matters? Short answer, no. And without credibility, we stand no chance of altering our current course. Are those that are making many of the claims just mentioned in any meaningful and credible way addressing climate engineering, aka weather warfare, during such disseminations? Generally, no. Or the fact that global ecological collapse is unfolding and accelerating by the day, ozone layer collapse, ubiquitous contamination of the entire planet, total disruption of the global hydrological cycle. I could go on and on. All of it being further fueled by geoengineering operations, the crown jewel weapon of the controllers. How many alt media sources make mention of the inarguable existential challenges covered in this broadcast? Challenges of unfolding and accelerating biosphere collapse, which has a direct bearing on our food supplies, our water, and every breath we take. And that even without any nuclear war or global conflict scenario, collapse is already a given due to the damage already done to the planet's imploding life support systems. How many media sources mention any of this while claiming that the problem is just demons and aliens behaving badly? Credible data from a credible source. That is the key to the door. First, those that try to claim humans would not do such terrible things to other humans, thus inferring it must be some outside life form committing the crimes, are clearly not considering factually verifiable realities. Humans have always done horrible things to other humans, and all living things. If you don't know what the Milgram experiments were, please take the time to investigate, as the Milgram experiments proved, sadly, that the vast majority of humans are, with few exceptions, more than willing to commit an endless list of atrocities on innocents so long as they believe someone in authority is dictating the orders to carry out the atrocities. From nuclear bombs to climate engineering's complete contamination and decimation, verifiable historical data makes clear that all of this is humans behaving poorly, not mystical beings or ETs. Yes, the expanse of the universe is truly beyond comprehension. It would seem exceedingly unlikely that we're here all alone. But that being said, the science premise of Occam's razor should not be ignored. Occam's razor definition, for those that are unfamiliar with the term, the explanation that requires the fewest assumptions is usually correct. Another way of saying it is that the more assumptions that you have to make, the more unlikely an explanation is. The unfolding and accelerating planetary omnicide scenario from countless forms of human activity is verifiably directly linked to humans behaving poorly. For over 20 long years, I've slogged forward in the fight to expose and halt what's taking place in our skies, the single greatest form of human destruction to the planet yet deployed. Only global nuclear war could exceed the climate engineering decimation, and it may, soon. All of it's connected. Again, off-the-reservation speculation is doing great harm to the cause of credibly exposing and halting climate engineering weather warfare operations, which are being ramped up to ever more dire and destructive levels with each passing day. And all of this on top of the endless other forms of damage being done to the planet by human activities. Industrialized, militarized so-called societies have been erected on a completely unsustainable and self-destructive foundation. How many continue to cling to the completely false conclusion that the current paradigm of loot, plunder, pillage, and pollute till nothing's left can somehow magically continue forever? If we could only elect the right political clown to play their part in the completely scripted political circus of the absurd. It's insanity, all of it. And in the meantime, with each passing day, the planet's life support systems and the entire web of life circles ever closer to the drain. We can choose to accept what is, well or poorly, but accept it we must. For the record, omnicidal realities cannot be altered for the better unless they are first fully faced. All are needed in this must-win battle for everything that matters, everything that we've been entrusted with, preserving and protecting, everything that we hold dear. Keep your principles, philosophy, and faith polished. Challenges as of yet unimaginable to most are now very near. Check the activist suggestions link on the homepage of geoengineeringwatch.org for specific instructions on how you can help to move this fight forward. We are rapidly running out of time. Please make your voice heard, make every day count. Until next week, this is Dane Wigington from geoengineeringwatch.org.